I'm talking to myself again. Anyway, see if this thing's working. Yep, it's recording. Okay, so I've got my shovel, and I'm gonna head out into the field here in front of my grandmother's house. Of course, my grandmother's passed away, so she's gone. But my aunt lives there now. And I'm going to go to this field here, where I have, if you recognize the place, it's the home farm. We're going to walk out into this field here. We have had 4 inches of rain. 4 inches of rain. This was corn last year. We went over it lightly with the disc after the corn, and then I ripped it. Okay? So the reason I ripped it was to break up compaction, and there were areas in this field that were severely compacted. Since then I have put lime on, and what we're looking for is worm activity. Okay? So one way of building organic matter in your soil is to have good worm activity, and I'm going to tell you what I see right now is that there is worm activity. Night crawlers. See all these? Well, maybe you can't see them. All through the mud, it's full of worm tracks. Worm tracks. Damn, they're worm tracks. So 4 inches of rain will drive them right up out of the ground. As you can see, this corn yielded really good. It was over 200 bushels to the acre. The residue is breaking down nicely, so that pretty much leads me to believe that I do have some pretty good microbiology or microbiome in the soil. One thing I've learned is after I ran that ripper that it was probably not the right thing to do, but I'm going to go ahead and stuff this shovel in the ground and see what kind of worms we got. Oh, there's a worm, and there's a worm. They're kind of towards the surface, which is where we want them to be. They are doing their thing, like what they're supposed to do. Excellent. Quite pleased with that. One shovel, saw a couple of worms. Now, you really, of course, there's just organic residue here. And organic residue, oh, there's another one. There's more worms. Okay, so we got worms. I know we have worms out here. Worms don't like acidic soil, just like rhizobum bacteria or fungus, the rhizosphere. In order for the rhizome to grow, it needs to have a neutral pH or 6.5 to 7 in order to grow, and obviously you need something for that to eat. I have no living roots in the ground, just so everybody knows. Now, because I ripped this, it's rougher than a bear's ass. And I mean, it's rougher than a corn cob. It is rough out here. I'm going to actually run the disc over top of this. Yeah, it's like starting from scratch. But this farm has been chisel plowed the last couple of years, and disc down and then roller harrowed. So for what I want to do is I want to there's going to be soybeans in this whole farm. There's 65 acres here on the home farm. And I'm going to go ahead and level it all off. I'll put my compost down, and then I'll work it in. I'm going to put another 1,000 pounds of I think I'm going to put another 1,000 pound of lime on, just for shits and giggles, because that's just what I want to do. That will be the last time that I work this ground for a very, if ever again, as far as I'm concerned, because I am going into the carbon farming or regenerative agriculture program with intensive cover crops, multi-species cover crops. I'm not going to be into the monocultures anymore. Of course, the cash crops will be a monoculture, but the cover crops will not be. I will use monoculture like rye. If I do say corn into rye. I may do corn with wheat and rye blended, because that's two different species, which will help in feeding the different microbes and bacteria that's in the soil. Eventually, I plan on weaning off of all fertilizers, including the compost. I'm not sure that I will wean completely off the compost, because that does provide food for the microbiome in the soil. So I'm always going to have a living root in the ground. Now, there were some comments that were made on this channel, I think it was 2 videos ago, about me and how, you know, the minute the corn price and soybean price are up, your carbon farming idea is out the window and you're back on the government juice, you know, on the government welfare. Well, I haven't been into a government office in over 10 years. 10 years, at least. Let's see. Christ, it's got to be 10 years or more. 10 years or more. No less than 10 years. Well, let's see. Hurricane Sandy. I was out of there before Hurricane Sandy. I wouldn't go in there. So that was probably in 2011 or 2010 or 2011 was the last that I was in there. So I have not received anything or want to receive anything from the federal government. And I have no plans on using them for their cover crop programs, because it just isn't what I want to do. So I'm going to stick this shovel in the ground again, because it's a different area, and I know that there's worms here. It's crazy, but you pop them up, and let's see what kind of worm activity we got going on. Oh, there they are. They're a little bit deeper than. Oh, where'd he go? Oh, there he is. They're a little bit deeper. Hey, there's worms. So it's good. It's good that I got good worm activity. The worms are eating this residue. I'm going to let people in on a misconception. People call this organic matter. This is not organic matter. This is organic residue. Okay? It does not become organic matter until it has been broken down and excreted from the microbiome in the soil. If you grow corn on corn, just like if you grow beans on beans, you can actually lower your organic matter. It doesn't matter if it's a 300 bushel to the acre yield. It doesn't matter if it's a 100 bushel to the acre soybean field. It's just organic residue. It does not become, you can disc this in and your microbes can eat it, and then you can make the field clean, like with herbicides and stuff, or disc it and roll it and kill your mycorrhizal fungi, and your microbes will die off, and your organic matter or your organic residue will just lay in the soil, and maybe worms will eat it, and as it does break down, it's just not breaking down in a manner that is, you know, utilized fast enough for your plants. So in order to really make organic matter in your soil, or store carbon, CO2, carbon in your soil, you need to have living roots, because the exudates from those living roots is what feeds the microbiome, and you can actually build organic matter in your soil 30 times faster than if I put 10 ton of compost onto the acre and I had, say, 4 ton of organic residue from the corn crop. It's just organic residue. Yes, they break it down. Yes, they eat it. Yes, they convert the nutrients that are in those dead plants to be available to the new growing living plant, which is part of the regenerative process. But the microbiome, if it isn't healthy, it isn't breaking down those mineral nutrients that are already in your soil, which would take you 100,000 years to mine out of the soil. If your soil is sterile, meaning it has no organic matter in it, or your microbiome is dead, that's when you need those commercial fertilizers. Now, that compost over there, in conjunction with this residue, and of course my secret sauce, will cause that to break down faster than normal. Plus the exudates from the soybeans, I should be able to put about, I could probably get away with only 1 ton of that to the acre for the soybeans, and probably and very easily grow something like 80 bushel to the acre beans. Now, there's a lot of variables to do that. I will be putting 2 tons of that to the acre because that was my plan. 2 tons to the acre for soybeans, 5 tons for corn. I could probably put a ton of that to the acre for beans and 3 tons of that to the acre for corn, and then just feed my secret sauce and the nitrogen liquid 32% at about 100 units to the acre, and still produce something like 150 to 170 bushel corn with everything that is in the ground. Now, I will be planting corn through standing hay. That hay will be chest high or belly button high at the time that I do it. There's gonna be some people in the area that think I'm crazy, but all of that living material, plus my secret sauce, but all that living biomass is storing nutrients for the growing corn. Nitrogen in that grass or that hay, it will break down about the time that ear starts to fill. So what I really need to do is use, I was thinking about using ammonium sulfate or ammonium nitrate. Ammonium sulfate would probably be the better of the two to use, but I'm going to use liquid 32, which is urea, which is organic, by the way, and ammonium nitrate. Nitrate fertilizer is really, really hard on the microbiome, but that's why I'm only going to use like 100, maximum 120 units of nitrogen, because I have nitrogen from the hay, and for the soybeans I don't want any nitrogen. The little bit of nitrogen that is in this corn stalks should not be available to the soybeans until it flowers. So that's why I'm really thinking I'm only going to put a ton of that to the acre. I don't know. I'm talking out loud here, thinking out loud here. 1 to 2 tons of that to the acre should be perfectly fine. Don't put nitrogen on your soybeans because it won't produce nodules, and your nodules are what convert the air that we breathe, the inert nitrogen that is in our atmosphere. Those nodules actually convert the inert nitrogen that is in our atmosphere, the unavailable nitrogen, to available nitrogen, available organic nitrogen, which can be utilized by a soybean plant. So I doubt that I get 80 bushel beans off of the first go around with this. I think it's going to take about 2 years before I achieve that. We are dry land. There's no irrigation here on any of our farms. There's no water there for that. Well, there's water there, but it's just something that's too expensive, so we don't do it. So yeah, but anyway, that's the plan. That is the plan. And my secret sauce it's in these tanks. It is in these tanks, but yeah, I don't know. I need about 3 gallons of that to the acre right off the bat in corn and soybeans, and then soybeans I'll put it on again at B5, B3 or B5, well, right at first bloom. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching.